Today, we're talking with Raghu Bala, founder and CEO of Synergetics, about turning complex data into clear insights for smarter business decisions and faster growth.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
Welcome to BeyondSaaS. I'm Jason Neidel, founder of Tethos. We are a growth agency, and for the past 20 years, we've been accelerating tech company growth through strategy, branding, lead generation, and conversion. If you're looking to grow, check out tethos.com/podcast, or feel free to drop the word growth in the comments, and I will message you. Today, I'm excited to explore tech company growth with Raghu. He's the founder and CEO of Synergetics AI. They help businesses cut through the noise by transforming confusing data into straightforward, easy to understand insights so that organizations can make smarter, quicker decisions, kind of like an AI virtual assistant. And Raghu comes to the table with a cool blend of technical expertise and real world business strategy. And I hear that you have this creative yet practical approach to solving problems. So I'm interested to see how you apply that to AI. Welcome, Raghu.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
So I'd love to offer listeners a quick tip. Do you have a golden nugget?
Actually, it's an app that I use quite often called Genius Scan, and it's pretty smart. It's pretty cool because you can share it over email, you can share it over all kinds of other apps it can plug into. So it really is very good when you want to go fully digital and paperless.
I'm a huge fan of Genius Scan, and I'm glad you brought that up because I know one's brought that up, and it's such a simple, easy way to avoid scanning. It cleans up your papers and it makes them straight. And
Exactly.
yeah, it's genius. Perfect. So tell me a little bit about Synergetics.
So we are an agentic AI company, and we've been around for about just over 18 months. And we see a movement in the future of work. Actually, I write a blog on Medium, and I published it some time ago on the future of work, where we see enterprises gravitating from just human workforces into a combination of human and digital humans. And these digital humans manifest themselves either as avatars, chatbot, voice agents, and also can be embedded within devices and so on. And so we actually have a platform that enables companies to hire and also build their own digital agents. And these digital agents can do various types of work, and they can come in various forms.
Well, I'm interested in how that works. And this is something that everybody is struggling with and is going to struggle with for the next few years. So I love that you have insight and like, how does a human and digital human workface, what does that look like in a few years down the line?
Yeah, so basically these digital humans are powered by AI, obviously. And AI itself has got two facets. One is called generative AI, which is very popular right now. And then the classic AI, or what we call discriminative AI. So generative AI is very indeterminate. Discriminative AI is determinate. Actually, I teach a course online for MIT Sloan. One of the things that one has to understand about AI is it simulates your brain. Actually, right brain is all creative, left brain is more logic oriented, and so on. So the classic AI is all left brain, the right brain is all creative, generative. So that's why it's called generative AI. So example, I tell people is if you ask me to paint the Mona Lisa twice, probably both of them look slightly different because each time it's a new production. That's what generative AI uses. But anyway, coming back to your question, companies can leverage these AI agents, which are a combination of both AI plus process automation. So they can be deployed to do mundane, repetitive tasks very, very well. And then, of course, some of the creative tasks can also be done through AI agents. So a simple example would be that if you have a small company and you have some bookkeeping tasks, you can probably use an AI agent to automate a lot of the data entry or journal entries and so on. Now, but if it's a larger company and it's got a whole finance department, it's a bookkeeper, there's an accountant, there's a controller, there's a CFO. In that, some of these roles might be human, some might be agents. And so you create what is known as an agentic workflow, which has humans in the loop, and they all work in concert to produce some outcome. And then eventually, what you're going to have is agents within one company be able to talk to agents within another company. So the example I normally give is if you happen to go for a medical checkup, what happens is you hand the admin person your insurance card. They quickly call the insurance company and to check if your insurance is still valid. And then if it's valid, they ask you to come in for a consultation. After the consultation, they again call the insurance company and say, okay, Jason had these procedures done or whatever it is. and then that's how they get paid. So this conversation is between a provider and a payer in the insurance context. And so that function is completely manual these days. And what's going to happen over time is both sides could be replaced by AI agents, and the interaction will be faster, cheaper, and less error prone. And so this is an area of where agents in one organization will start to talk to agents in another organization. So there are three ways basically: agents acting as individual contributors, agents working hand in hand with humans, and agents working with agents across enterprise boundaries. So all of these are in progress right now, and we have a number of customers who have started to automate various functions using AI agents.
Wow. And I see that you're looking a little further off into the future, even at quantum computing. How, when computers are thousands of times more powerful, what does our world look like in 10 years?
Yeah, so I think what you're going to have is a lot of devices which are smarter, and we have started to see that already. Like the Tesla self-driving car is an example of an autonomous agent, and then soon you'll start to see these bots that are going to be in every household. I have a small side bet with my wife that every home will have a bot in their home by the year 2030 doing household things like folding your clothes, washing your clothes, going to a washing machine, putting it in, then taking it out, putting it to a dryer, taking that out, folding it, putting it back into the closet, whatever it might be. It just takes up a lot of time, and I have not heard one person who says they enjoy doing that, or even ironing and whatnot. So an example of that would be, the bot would be able to assist you with that, or with other types of cleaning or gardening or household tasks. And right now they're starting off just like plasma TV started off as $10,000, $20,000, and then now you can get one for under 1,000 or less. And these bots are starting out at 20, 25,000 right now, and soon I think you'll get it at Costco for like $500, just like a vacuum cleaner. It's gonna happen. It's on its way. But anyway, that's one aspect of the future. The other aspect is you're gonna have these machines which are now smart and can interact with humans through voice. You might go to a vending machine and it'll talk to you and it'll say, okay, well, what do you want, Jason? And then you'll say, I want a Coke. And that's the type of interaction you're going to have, and no more buttons and whatnot. And so I think a lot of things that we are accustomed to will change just slightly with a more human interface and so on. So I think all of that is going to happen in the very, very near future. But I think also the human population and how we evolve. Every industrial revolution prior to this has seen this happen over and over again. I mean, like the shirts you and I wear. If you went back 100 years, maybe they were made by seamstresses sewing it in a factory. But then that gave way to machine-based clothing production, and so that job of a seamstress, unless for certain hands stitched clothing, which is there are a few premium stuff maybe, but apart from that, the mass production is through machines. And so the same way certain roles and jobs that we are accustomed to will make way, and then certain new jobs will come about. Like in the first internet, and if you went back to 1994 in a time machine and asked someone what's a webmaster, and most people say, I don't know what's a webmaster. But then that became a job for some people. And the same way in the AI space, right now there's a job called prompt engineer. So that's not was not very relevant maybe 2 3 years ago, but then now it's a role that some people play. So like this, I think new roles, new things will happen, and people have always evolved, and I think the same thing will happen this time around.
Sure. But possibly with great disruption to the economy and to certain people's livelihoods, right? Because when we went and transformed during the Industrial Revolution, all sorts of people were out of work for a generation because they couldn't transform to the new way of working.
Yeah, so that's actually kind of segues into some of the teaching, types of things that I do online with MIT Sloan and a company called 2U that offers MIT courses online. I'm the facilitator for the courses. And most of the participants in these courses are actually people. There's a set of people who want to learn about AI or blockchain or DeFi, but then there's a set of people who are sort of trying to make a career transition. They are trying to retool themselves. And so you'll see over the next several years a lot of retooling happening where people are adding new skills to their portfolio so that they're more relevant to the workforce of the future. And fortunately for us, that's become very attainable right now. All you have to do is go online. There are a lot of free courses, there are a lot of paid courses, there's a lot of stuff on YouTube that you can learn for free just by watching certain things. So that retooling is maybe in the past was much harder, and now it's actually quite easy for someone even without spending a lot of money to get up to speed.
So, speaking of replacing people, you're founder and CEO. What makes you irreplaceable? What's the heart of your role that AI can't do?
Actually, if you ask me, I want AI to do more of my work so that I can be relieved. I don't need to do so much. But CEO of a startup is a joke is CEO is not the E is not executive, but it's everything. So chief everything officer. So I have to do the books, I help with sales, help with the product engineering, work with the engineers on my team to develop the code. There's a whole bunch of things. But I'll give you one example where actually AI came in very handy. So one day I had to do some credit card reconciliation on QuickBooks, which we use just like 14 million other businesses in America. And I said, man, this is taking too long. And because I had a lot of these PDFs from different banks and whatnot, I had to reconcile into the books. And I worked with my engineer, and a couple of weeks later, we had developed a QuickBooks agent where if you just upload the PDF, it will strip out everything and do all of the entries by itself. And
Mm,
what took many hours, maybe a couple of days, and this became 10 minutes worth of work. That's the type of thing I'm talking about, where people want to give up that work because they don't want to be sitting there doing this thing anyway. So and the goal of AI is actually, it can be not only in the form of replacing people, but actually making them a lot more productive so that you can do more things. A lot of the small businesses can benefit a lot from AI because if they are a one or two man or small team of people working in a company, you can look much bigger. In fact, you can compete with the bigger boys now that you have automation.
for sure. So, what's your growth goal over the next 12 months?
So our main thing is, from a fundraising perspective, obviously to get to Series A by this year. From a growth perspective, is to hit certain targets in terms of revenue objectives, and also in terms of usage of the product itself. And this can be measured in terms of downloads of our app and or traffic into various parts of the system, or what we measure purchases of what we call credits in the system, which is how we measure how much AI is being consumed by our customer. We purchase credits, and these are exhausted as the system runs. So these are sort of the KPIs that we are using to measure and drive the business forward this year.
Right? More usage means more value for the customers because they're actually getting things done,
Exactly.
which also means ultimately more revenue. But the main thing is that they're getting value if they're actually using it.
Yeah, so that's a very good point. So I've had multiple exits as a founder or co-founder in companies, and typically my focus is on that word value, and that is usually in the form of usage by end users and so on. So that ultimately will get us to revenue objectives. So I'm not as worried about revenues as much as creating the value. And once you create value, revenues will automatically come. Usually they're a byproduct. And so that's where I focus on. And so does the team.
Sure. So, what are you doing in sales and marketing these days to let people know about you? How do people find out about you?
So initially, what we did was we took a more traditional marketing approach, and we have since realized that that method may not work as well. The software companies today have moved to a different model in terms of marketing, which is you need to build communities. And so, first of all, you got to sort of segment your audience, whether it's developers or product people or C-level executives that you're selling to, or investors. In order to get your share of voice, you got to segment your audience into these different buckets and figure out where these people sort of hang out online. It could be on Discord, could be on Reddit, could be on Substack. So they all respond to different methods of interaction. So you have to figure out which audience and which crowd, how they work, how they accumulate knowledge and information, and try to be in that sort of mix. Engagement has to happen at a very grassroots level. And so I look at it as what I call bottom up and top down sales. So bottom up, we reach these audiences through these different means, and top down, we sell through usually at the C level or PP level and so on. So I was a CTO of a local company called automotive.com for many years, and a lot of vendors used to ping me. But and what happens is, as a C-level person, you typically, once you have a vendor discussion, you turn around and you ask your teammates, your directors, your managers, and below to say, hey, have you heard about this product or this vendor or whatnot? And if your team has not even heard about it or doesn't know, that tends to end the conversation there. So if you do both bottom up and top down, what happens is, whether you give freebies or trials or engage this audience conversation internally, they'll say, yeah, I've heard about this product. I actually use it. I downloaded some demo, blah, blah, blah. So then what happens is the conversation becomes, the top level executives feel, oh, wow, my team even knows about it. Even I didn't know, but they know about it. So this must be good. So let me talk with the vendor and start to engage them. So in order to succeed, I think, one has to go from both ends of the spectrum. And so that's what we are beginning to do. And so community development is very key before you can even sort of like go out and sell, because people have to hear about you. And that begins with a more, guerrilla tactic, fundamental grassroots movement. And that community building is what we're starting to do while we still engage from the top down, more traditional sales and marketing approach.
It makes me think two things. One of our guests was talking about MQL and SQL, but then he talked about the freemium model and how you have a product qualified lead, and you know that that person is already using your product or is able to and wants to use your product to some degree. Now you just have to convert them to a paying customer, and I think that's always an interesting way to look at it. Does that work in this agentic process to
Yes,
have
absolutely.
freemium elements?
Yeah, so we have a platform which consists of several tools, and also when we go to customers, some of them are looking for tools, and so this sort of freemium and then going to a premium model works with tools. They are sort of tools that you don't need to do much selling; they sort of sell themselves. But then when it comes to more solution development for companies, that is more of a hands-on sales process. It's not just let them sign up online and so on. So when it comes to those types of things that we have in our portfolio, then what happens is it doesn't take the form of a freemium, but takes a form of a POC. So you have a proof of concept. Everyone wants you to do something and then prove that the thing works, and then it now gets into a more of a paid engagement. So we have done that, and because we are a product company and not a service company, we are partnered with a number of systems integrators who do the development and hand holding of the customer, while we provide our platform and some services to engage the customer to kind of figure out how to solve the problem using agentic AI.
That's great. So the other thing it was making me think is about communities. How are you building those communities? And then what's the constraint? What's stopping you from, if you could change something, what's stopping you from moving faster?
So the second question I'll answer quickly, which is funding. It's always a money question, because the more share of voice you want, you have to spend more and make more noise. And so, but we want to do it such that we can do it within a budget, and still get some bang for the buck. So the capital and funding is the constraint as far as being faster. But then the first part of the question was, how do we engage? And we are starting that process. Like I said, we are trying to find people who are familiar with interacting with developers. So a community person in the developer sense is called a developer relations engineer. They call it DevRel, which is a developer relations person. And if you look at community building from, we have some Web3 components in our platform. So in the Web3 world, it's slightly different, and the crowd for Web3 tends to hang out in Telegram for whatever reason, but they hang out in Telegram. But then they also expect certain freebies and certain ways of engagement that are very peculiar to Web3. So the audience, you have to really understand your audience, where they hang out, and then give them what they want. And so that's very important. Whereas if you look at the business people, if you go higher up the chain in a company, executive and so on, they tend to hang out in LinkedIn or sometimes in X. And so how you engage with them also is very different. So even the how you do your promotions, how you talk, how you write is very different. If you look at Telegram or Discord, talking to developers versus talking to executives. They'll put all kinds of emojis and all kinds of things, and that's okay in this world, but not in the LinkedIn world.
So, is there anything in sales and marketing that's surprised you lately? Are there tactics that you didn't think would work and they worked, or things that used to work and are failing?
What I've seen is many of the old fashioned methods don't work. Things that worked maybe 20 years ago, 15 years ago may not work. The things that right now work is like I said, you really need to understand your audience and then segment your audience and then use the right tools and also use the right person from your side who's more of a community builder. And so we are in the midst of recruiting community builders, but we might end up recruiting 3 or 4 different community builders because each of these communities has got almost like a different persona. And so you need to engage them with the right type of person. In the LinkedIn community might be a more type of sales or marketing person, whereas in the developer relations, they want to talk to someone who is almost like a technical evangelist. So the skill sets vary. And so, at least for software companies, this is what's going on. This is the same for someone else in other forms of business like retail or insurance or banking. But in software, this is what's going on.
That makes sense. So, it sounds like you know an enormous amount about AI. What should other tech leaders know about AI, specifically as it relates to growing their companies?
I think, first of all, AI is nothing without data. So, and it's very, very important to understand how your company collects data, how it stores the data, and what's relevant. Because a lot of companies who want to jump into AI, when we engage with them, we typically we do an assessment initially. And that assessment is to almost figure out the maturity of that company in terms of people, process, and tools and data. And so, quite often, we have come across the situation where the company has got a lot of goals, a lot of pain points that they want to solve, but they are not collecting the data in the right way. Data is the new oil and is the sort of engine behind AI. Because AI at the root of it is very statistical. And they'll say statistically significant or statistically insignificant. So that significance comes about from a lot of data. The more data you have, the more your recommendations and predictions and forecasts can have some validity. But then if you don't have enough data, then you are sort of making certain assumptions based on very little information, and that tends to have very poor results. So data collection is number one. If that problem is solved, then you can turn your attention to the other 3 things, which is people, process, and tools. So in the case of process, we got to figure out, okay, now that the company has collected data correctly, now how does information move within the company? And what we have found out is that a lot of companies have a lot of tribal knowledge. And this tribal knowledge is buried within how that company functions and within various people in those companies. And so if you go there and ask them some question, they won't be able to answer very objectively. They'll say, this is how we do it here. And that's no good for AI. AI needs things almost to be very precise. So normally we force companies to give us a sort of a data flow or kind of a flow diagram to say how data and people interact and how does it move around the company for this particular function. Could be accounting, could be sales, could be marketing, could be what. So that's the process. The process has to be clearly specified. And then it comes to people and tools. So sometimes they might have the right people, but the people might be lacking training. So we might have to retool them, retrain them. And then the tooling, they might have some antiquated technologies which need to be looked at to upgrade to sort of work in the AI ecosystem. So that's the sort of 4 steps that need to be looked at.
I love that. It's a great way to look at it. Times feel pretty turbulent right now. How are you seeing trends in the year or two ahead to help your growth? What do you see happening and how are you navigating this chaos?
Yeah, I think in our particular realm, actually, there's a lot of noise in the industry. And one of the things is the only way to fight noise is to educate. So a lot of our sales and marketing is very educational because we have to educate the audience, the public, the customers, and even our investors as to like what are we doing and how do we differentiate ourselves from others. In the case of customers, they need to understand how does this thing help me, and so on. So a lot of it is educational. So I think that's one of the things that we are sort of, I hate to use the word combating, but we have to do it. That's part of you know par for the course in this space. Now, as far as the turbulence in business is concerned, I think like what you said, there'll be some dislocation in the next couple of years. I think there'll be winners and losers. Companies which embrace technology have always um, sort of like overcome companies who have not. Companies have to make that decision for themselves in terms of competitive advantage, and because if they don't, they'll be left behind. And we have seen many companies, even big companies, the Novels of the world, the Blackberries of the world. Every generation has got a big company which you didn't think will blockbuster in the retail sense. Companies that you thought will survive a long time, they just disappeared overnight because technology does that. It hands the sort of like gold medal of victory to the companies who embrace technology, and if you don't embrace, you're sort of out of the game. And
Mm-hmm.
so this is true for any business, small or large. And I think a lot of the executives have to start thinking, okay, you know what, this is not a nice to have. This is business continuity. If we don't embrace, we might be out of business. And we urge companies to look at it very critically because this is the seismic shift in how things are done.
I think that's such a big point. It's not, yeah, looking at AI is not, oh, well, we better just kind of keep up with everybody. It's that you're not going to be here in 5 years if you didn't find a way to adopt it.
Yeah, exactly. That's serious actually.
Wow. This has been super interesting and fun. And it's nice to talk to someone who's a virtual neighbor here. I talk to people all around the world. It's nice that you're in Orange County like me. Where can our audience find you online?
So it's www.synergetics.ai, synergetics.ai. You can reach me on LinkedIn or Raghu at Synergetics.
Raghu, thank you so much for being on Beyond SaaS. For leaders in mid-stage tech looking to grow, we drop episodes twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And you can find me, Jason Neidl, at tethos.com. That's tethos.com, where you can grab a free report on how to grow your company, or you can reach out for a personal consultation at tethos.com/podcast. And of course, leave any questions for me or for future guests or comments or feedback. We appreciate all that, especially if you got some value today. And until next time, this is Beyond SaaS.